in your bulletin. It is Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. The reason it's in your bulletin in an insert is because I chose the NIV, New International Version translation, over our Pew Bible because I think it's just much better written and much better translated. And this is called in the New International Version, a wife of noble character. This is written by King Lemuel, who had a mother of great wisdom, who in the preceding 9 verses gave her son, King Lemuel, some good advice, some good wisdom. And then in the next 21 verses, King Lemuel lifts up and praises the honors of a wife of noble character. Hear then the reading of the word of the Lord. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. May God bless the hearing of this section of His holy word. When I started thinking about the message that I would have for this Mother's Day, Mothers Then and Now, I was going to only select the verses from this epilogue, which seem relevant to somewhat modern-day mothering. But then I thought it might be kind of fun to read all 21 of these verses in this epilogue, just to see a glimpse of how mothering might have changed in the last, say 5,000 or 6,000 years. For instance, how many of you ladies hold a distaff, a stick with flax and wool and cloth, under your left arm, and then use your right hand to separate those materials and wrap it around a spindle? You still do that every Friday night, right? Working the wool and flax with eager hands to make coverings for your bed. I know one lady that does quilting for sure, but beautiful quilting, but honestly, most women don't make their bed coverings nowadays. How many mothers nowadays get up while it is still night to provide food for your family? Oh, and portions for your female servants. How many of you ladies have female servants in your household? I'm not seeing any hands. How many of you go out and buy a field? Well, maybe if you're a farmer's wife, you might be buying an extra field, unless you're getting ready to retire from that business. Do you make sure that your family is clothed in scarlet when it snows? And why would that make any difference anyway? Is scarlet clothing warmer than, say, cotton or linen? Maybe it's the color that makes it warmer. Why would that even be pertinent now? Are there any seamstresses in the sanctuary today who actually make linen garments to sell? No, we go to Kohl's or we go to Walmart or we go to J.C. Penney or Sears. How many of you supply sashes to merchants? And what would a merchant use your sash for today? Clearly, mothering has changed a bit since then. And I would even go so far as to say that the fine art and skills of mothering actually changes in each and every generation successively after the one before it. Those of you who have raised children or who are currently raising children, consider how your own mother raised you. Were there some things that your mom did while she was raising you that made you think, I'm not going to be like that with my kids? Or did your mom do such a good job of raising you that you dreamed of being just like her when your kids were born? Personal preferences that are learned from your mother are just one of the constantly shifting factors in the way that women mother their children in different generations. But there are other factors as well. Sometimes shifts in cultural settings create subtle, or even not so subtle, changes in how a woman raises her kids. For example, my mother was born in 1917 and raised on a just getting by kind of poor farm in rural Tennessee way back when? 108 years ago. Now, when she grew up and my dad and she got married, they moved to the bustling suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee, where my dad drove a cab, and all of a sudden she was no longer a country girl, but they were city folk. As if that wasn't enough of a culture shift for my mother, just a year after their third and smartest son was born, they moved to Peoria without even asking me if I wanted to go, roughly 500 miles from her home. Talk about a culture shift. Now she was a city girl living in a land of a bunch of Yankees. Now she had her hands full with my 5-year-old brother, my 3-year-old brother, and me just learning to walk at the age of 1. Times were so different for her than they would be for one of your children moving far away from home now. And some of you have experienced that. Many of you have. But my mom was totally isolated from the support system that she knew in Tennessee, which included her mom and dad, her 5 other brothers and sisters, and her aunts and uncles. And in those days, 1952, mind you, there were no computers with Zoom or Skype. No smartphones with FaceTime, so she could see her parents or sisters or brothers on a phone call. Long-distance phone calls were expensive. And her tablet was just for writing letters. Thankfully, my mom was fortunate enough to be surrounded by good-hearted neighbors on all sides of the house that we moved into when I entered the 5th grade. Those good neighbors quickly became a good, strong support system for my mom. My family, when I was growing up, looking back on it, was somewhat poor. I'd say on the medium to high end of poor. Dad did manage to make enough money for us to get by, working 2 jobs. And with my mom's frugal shopping methods, we always made it down home, the 500-mile trip to Woodbury, Tennessee, for 2 weeks in the summer and 10 days at Christmas time during Cat's shutdown. As I was growing up, I could see that being raised in a totally different cultural and socioeconomic setting than my mom had experienced as a child. I could only imagine what it was like for her. We had a bathroom in the house where I was growing up. My mom even had a washing machine in the house with ringers for getting the washing machine didn't spin the water out. The ringers did that and cranked it by hand. But my mom's mom just had a wash tub and a scrub board. My mom's cook stove was fueled by gas, not by firewood, that my grandmother chopped herself by hand. We had a coal-fired furnace with heating vents in every downstairs room instead of just one pot-bellied wood-burning stove in the living room to try to heat a house in the wintertime. I do have to say that my grandma's firewood-fueled cook stove somehow managed to make the very best fried chicken in the world, and special chocolate gravy for my biscuits because she knew how much I liked it. My mom tried to make me some chocolate gravy for my biscuits, and I'm sorry, Mom, you know it just wasn't like your mom's. But it was clear to me that my mom was now living in and raising her kids in a completely different environment than the one in which she grew up. This had to affect her mothering style for us, and she knew that. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved and cherished the time that we spent on that farm with my grandparents, but I could clearly see the advantages that awaited us at home up north in Peoria when we returned. But in spite of all of those differences in culture and socioeconomic status from my mom's childhood and our childhood, she still raised us boys with the somewhat same moral values and religious beliefs that were similar to her mom's ways, but not exactly the same. Now, you see, my family's history religiously was in the Church of Christ, Acapulco style, or a cappella, not playing musical instruments. You had to sing a cappella. And my mom and dad's church up here was of that same venue, that same faith group, the Church of Christ, teaching the same basic beliefs in Sunday school to us. Oh, but there were some differences between the Church of Christ in the north and the Church of Christ down south. Like in the middle to late 1960s, our Peoria congregation of the Church of Christ said that it was okay for women to wear pantsuits to worship instead of dresses. My mom took full advantage of that. But when we went down home, she wore a dress to church because it was unacceptable to do otherwise. Some of you may have experienced religious differences than your mother had, and some of them may have been more significant than just what is appropriate church attire. Some of the differences in your beliefs than what your mother had might even be not only significant, or should we say perhaps even controversial. And those differences that you had in your religious views might make a difference in the way you mother your children. For instance, about 10 years ago, I was contacted by a friend of mine and asked if I would officiate the wedding for him and his young bride. Now, they came from very different religious backgrounds, still within the Christian faith. The groom was raised in a more of a progressive, open-minded church theology, kind of like the Christian church disciples of Christ is. But the bride came from a very conservative church with a very narrow view, which prohibited any of its members from marrying someone who was not of the same religious beliefs as they were. Yet this young woman loved this man so much that she agreed to marry him. The bride's parents refused to attend their daughter's wedding. Her father forfeited the honor and the privilege of walking his daughter down the aisle. So her brother walked her down the aisle instead. Her father and mother shunned her for disavowing their church's teachings. Now, I have seen their postings on social media over the years, and I have occasionally run into them. I can tell you that they are a very happy, loving couple and family, raising now 4 children. Largely due to this young woman having the courage to choose to follow a different spiritual path than the one she grew up on. And I know that she will be raising her children to make their own choice for their own spiritual path as they mature as well. Because her mothering style differs so greatly from her mother's style. One thing I do know for sure, she has never held a grudge against her parents for their decision to exclude her from their life from that moment forward over their different religious views. I know that in her beliefs, her own personal spiritual journey with God and with Jesus Christ, to hold a grudge against her mother would only diminish her joyful relationships with God and with her own family. Now, whatever your relationship is or was with your mother, that too can clearly be a factor of your own mothering style if you have kids. If your relationship isn't the best, or if it wasn't the best, take heart. Be of good cheer. Because I have personally witnessed in some situations broken relationships between mothers and children that were mended before mom passed over to that new life. And oh, what joy that produced in that family. If your relationship wasn't fixed before mom passed over, take heart. Be of good cheer anyway, because I have good news for you. I know that if that's the case, when you meet your mother in heaven, all that you will see and feel for each other is the love that eluded you here on earth. How can you be so certain, Pastor? Well, it's pretty simple. The God who loves each one of his children without any conditions would not allow any of his precious children to come into heaven carrying baggage and grudges, because then it wouldn't be heaven anymore. If there's anyone in this world who has not been able to resolve and to mend fences with their mother here, then the only possibility for you with your mother in heaven is to experience all of the joy and the love that you missed out on while you're here. Because I can guarantee you this: God would not have you suffer any longer the brokenness of that relationship. Instead, whatever stood between you here will just simply disappear and fall away through the veil of forgiveness. And that is the power that forgiveness holds in store for each one of God's children. And oh, the joy that will produce throughout all of the heaven when a child and a mother are reunited and finally feel the full measure of love that they were intended to have their whole life through. May all of the mothers of the world be blessed and be a blessing. May it be so. Amen. Our hymn of invitation is on page 715. Now thank we all our God. If there's anybody hearing this message